I came home 3 days early from a business trip. It was 6:47 in the morning. I found my husband of 41 years in our guest cottage with my son's fiancée, Vanessa. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "David deserves someone who still has passion. You're past that stage of life." I was 67 years old. I'd built our bed and breakfast with my own 2 hands over 32 years. They didn't know I had every single deed, every legal document, every property title in my name alone. I prepared a surprise that left them crying on the street with nothing but the clothes on their backs. And believe me, they earned every second of it. But before we go any further, if you're not subscribed yet, hit that button now. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I love hearing from you. My name is Margaret Davis. I'm a 67-year-old Black woman who spent 39 years as a registered nurse before retiring to run our family business full-time. The Mountain View Bed and Breakfast sits on 4 acres in the Blue Ridge Mountains, just outside Asheville, North Carolina. It's a restored 1895 Victorian home with 8 guest rooms, wraparound porches, and gardens I planted myself over 3 decades. My late mother always told me, "Baby girl, own something. Don't just work for somebody else's dream." So that's exactly what I did. I met David when I was 26 years old, working night shifts at the hospital. He was 31, a contractor who came in after falling off a ladder, broken arm, charming smile, and eyes that made me forget I was supposed to be professional. We got married 11 months later. For the first 15 years, we saved every penny. I worked double shifts. David took every construction job he could find. We lived in a tiny apartment and dreamed of something bigger. In 1992, we found the property. An abandoned Victorian mansion, falling apart, windows broken, roof caving in. The bank wanted $85,000. We had $63,000 saved. My grandmother, God rest her soul, loaned us the remaining $22,000. She made me promise one thing: put everything in your name, baby. I've seen too many women lose everything because they trusted the wrong person. I thought she was being paranoid. David and I were solid. We were partners. We were in love. But I honored her wishes anyway. So when we signed the papers, everything went into my name. Margaret Louise Davis. David didn't question it. He said he trusted me completely. We spent the next 3 years renovating that house ourselves. David did the construction work. I handled the interior design, the permits, the business licenses. We opened the Mountain View Bed and Breakfast in 1995 with just 4 guest rooms ready. Over the years, we expanded to 8 rooms, built a separate guest cottage for honeymooners, added a commercial kitchen, planted rose gardens, herb gardens, a vegetable patch that supplied our breakfast tables. We had one son, Marcus, born in 1993, right in the middle of our renovation chaos. I took 3 weeks off work, then went right back to nursing while David watched the baby and worked on the house. Marcus grew up in that B&B. He learned to cook in our kitchen, learned carpentry from his father, learned hospitality from watching us serve guests from all over the world. He was a good kid, smart, ambitious, kind-hearted, or at least I thought he was. Marcus went to culinary school in Charleston, then spent 2 years working at a 5-star restaurant in New York City. Last year, he came home and announced he wanted to open his own restaurant right here in Asheville. David and I were thrilled. Our son coming home, building something in our community. Then Marcus introduced us to Vanessa. He'd met her in New York, he said. She was a sous chef at a Michelin-starred restaurant. Beautiful, talented, sophisticated. They'd been dating for 18 months and were planning to get married. The wedding was scheduled for 2 weeks from the day I found them together. Vanessa was 28 years old, tall, blonde, blue eyes, perfect skin, the kind of woman who looked like she belonged in a magazine. She spoke with a slight accent that Marcus said was Portuguese. She'd trained in Lisbon for 3 years. From the moment I met her, something felt off. She never called me by my name. It was always Marcus's mom or ma'am, in a tone that felt just slightly condescending. She'd compliment the B&B, but always with a qualifier. Charming for a small-town place, or quaint in its own way. She moved into our guest cottage 6 months ago. Said she was getting a feel for the area before the wedding. Marcus stayed there with her most nights. Though he technically had an apartment in downtown Asheville, David loved her. He'd light up whenever she came around, laughing at her jokes, offering to help her with anything she needed. I told myself I was being paranoid, maybe even jealous that my son had found someone. But a mother knows. Something in my gut kept whispering, this woman is not who she pretends to be. The morning I found them, I'd been in Atlanta for a hospitality conference. 3 days of seminars, networking events, presentations about modern B&B management. I was supposed to come back Saturday afternoon, but the conference ended early. The final day's events got canceled due to a scheduling conflict. So Thursday night, I booked an earlier flight home, landing in Asheville at 5:30 Friday morning. I didn't tell David I was coming home early. I wanted to surprise him, maybe make his favorite breakfast before our guests woke up. I drove home in the pre-dawn darkness, watching the sky turn from black to deep purple over the mountains. I felt good, energized. The conference had given me new ideas for the B&B, ways we could modernize while keeping our charm. I pulled into our driveway at 6:38 in the morning. The main house was dark. Our guests wouldn't be up for another hour at least. I grabbed my suitcase from the trunk, breathing in the cool mountain air, the scent of pine and honeysuckle. That's when I noticed a light on in the guest cottage. The cottage sits about 50 yards from the main house, nestled among oak trees. It's our premium accommodation. King bed, fireplace, private porch, kitchenette. We charge $275 a night. Vanessa had been staying there rent-free for 6 months. Not paying utilities, not contributing to groceries. Living off the hospitality, David and I extended because she was going to be family. I should have walked straight to the main house, but something made me head toward the cottage instead. Maybe that same instinct that had been warning me about Vanessa all along. The front door was unlocked. I pushed it open quietly. I could hear voices from the bedroom, low, intimate, laughing. I walked down the short hallway, my heart starting to pound, my mouth going dry. The bedroom door was cracked open about 3 inches. I looked through that gap and saw my husband of 41 years in bed with my son's fiancée. David's shirt was on the floor. Vanessa wore nothing but a sheet. They were kissing like teenagers, his hands in her hair, her leg wrapped around his waist. I must have made a sound, a gasp, a whimper, something, because Vanessa's eyes suddenly snapped toward the door. She saw me standing there, our eyes locked, and instead of looking shocked or guilty or ashamed, she smiled. She actually smiled. Then she said, loud enough for me to hear clearly, David deserves someone who still has passion. You're past that stage of life. David's head whipped around. His face went white. Margaret, I didn't stay to hear whatever lie he was about to tell. I turned and walked out of that cottage, my legs moving automatically, even though I couldn't feel them. My vision tunneling. My breath coming in short gasps. I made it halfway across the lawn before I saw my son Marcus standing on the back porch of the main house. He was holding a cup of coffee, wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt, looking at me with an expression I couldn't immediately read. Mom, he said quietly, we need to talk. I followed Marcus into the kitchen of the main house. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the counter to steady myself. How long have you known? My voice came out as a whisper. Marcus set his coffee cup down. He wouldn't meet my eyes. 3 months, 3 months, 90 days, while I smiled at Vanessa across the dinner table. While I helped her pick out wedding invitations. While I ordered flowers for a ceremony that was never going to happen. I found messages on her phone, Marcus continued. His voice was flat, emotionless, like he was reading from a script. She left it unlocked one night. I saw texts between her and Dad, going back almost a year. A year. They'd been doing this for a year. Why didn't you tell me? I could barely get the words out. I wanted to be absolutely sure first. Marcus finally looked at me, and I saw pain in his eyes. Real pain. I thought maybe it was just flirting. Inappropriate, but not what it turned into. So I started digging deeper. And Mom, what I found... He stopped, shaking his head. It's so much worse than just an affair. He pulled his phone from his pocket and started scrolling through photos. Screenshots of documents, text messages, spreadsheets, bank statements. Vanessa isn't who she said she is, Marcus said. She's not a chef. She never worked at any Michelin restaurant in New York. That was all a lie. I stared at him. What? She works for a real estate development company called Horizon Properties. They specialize in acquiring historic properties in tourist areas and converting them into luxury boutique hotels or condos. He showed me a photo. Vanessa in a business suit at some corporate event. Name tag clearly visible. Vanessa Morrison, Acquisition Specialist, Horizon Properties. She was sent here specifically to get close to our family, Marcus said. Horizon identified our B&B as a target property 6 years ago. The location is perfect. 4 acres, mountain views, historic Victorian architecture. They've been waiting for the right opportunity to acquire it. My head was spinning. But how did she even find you? You were in New York. It wasn't an accident, Mom. She engineered the whole thing, found out where I worked, applied for a position there, made sure we ended up on the same shift. Everything was calculated. He swiped to another screenshot. An internal company memo from Horizon Properties, dated 3 years ago. Subject: Project Mountain View. Phase 1, initiated target. Mountain View B&B, Asheville. NC owner, Margaret Davis. Primary, David Davis, spouse. Strategy: family infiltration via son. Marcus Davis, age 29, chef, NYC. Agent. Assigned, Vanessa Morrison. Timeline: 24 to 36 months to acquisition. I read it 3 times before the words actually made sense. They've been planning this for 3 years, I said slowly. Planning to steal our home for 3 years, Marcus corrected. But it gets worse. He pulled up more documents. These ones made my blood run cold. Dad created a shell company 2 years ago, Marcus explained. It's called Blue Ridge Hospitality LLC. On paper, it's supposed to be a management company for the B&B, but what he's actually been doing is slowly transferring property assets into this new company. What kind of assets? Everything. The guest cottage deed, the commercial kitchen equipment, the vehicles, even some of the land. He split off 2 of our 4 acres and transferred them to the LLC. But he can't do that without my signature, I protested. Everything is in my name. Grandma made sure of that. Marcus's face told me the answer before he said it. He forged your signature, Mom. The kitchen tilted. I gripped the counter harder. I had a lawyer friend look at the documents. Marcus continued quietly. The signatures look almost perfect, but there are small differences. The way you curve the M in Margaret, the pressure of the pen on certain letters. A forensic handwriting expert could prove they're forgeries. He showed me copies of documents I'd supposedly signed. Transfers, amendments to the business structure, applications for new loans against the property. My signature on every single one, except it wasn't my signature. It was David's imitation of my signature. How much has he stolen? I asked. In direct cash? About $470,000 moved to offshore accounts over the past 2 years. In property value? That's harder to calculate. But if the company owns half the assets now, and Vanessa's company wants to buy it, they made an offer 6 months ago. $8.5 million for the entire property. The B&B, all 4 acres, the cottage, everything. According to the documents I found, Dad and Vanessa planned to split the proceeds after the sale. She'd get 40% as her commission. Dad would keep 60%. $8.5 million. I'd built this place from nothing. 41 years of marriage, 39 years of nursing, working night shifts and double shifts, 32 years of running this B&B, changing sheets, cooking breakfasts, welcoming strangers into our home. And David was going to sell it all for $8.5 million and run away with a 28-year-old con artist. The wedding was part of the plan, Marcus said. Once Vanessa married me, she'd legally be family. It would make the business transactions look more legitimate. A family business transition, not a hostile acquisition. After the sale went through, she'd divorce me, claim irreconcilable differences, and disappear with her money. And you'd be left with nothing. We'd all be left with nothing, Mom, except Dad and Vanessa. I looked at my son, really looked at him. He'd lost weight. There were dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept properly in months. Why didn't you tell me as soon as you found out? I asked again. Because I wanted to gather enough evidence first, Marcus said. I knew if I came to you with just suspicions, Dad would deny everything and Vanessa would probably disappear. I needed proof, hard evidence that couldn't be disputed. So I kept pretending everything was fine. I let them think their plan was working. For 3 months. For 91 days, Mom. 91 days of pretending I still loved a woman who was destroying our family. 91 days of sitting across the dinner table from my own father, knowing he was planning to betray all of us. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I pulled my son into a hug. He was 31 years old, 6'2", solid muscle from years of restaurant kitchen work. But in that moment, he felt like my little boy again. I'm so sorry, I whispered. You have nothing to be sorry for, Mom. You built something amazing. You trusted the people you loved. That's not a weakness. That's not something to apologize for. We stood there for a moment, holding each other in the kitchen where I'd made thousands of breakfasts for strangers, where I'd taught Marcus to crack eggs and flip pancakes, where I'd kissed David goodbye every morning for 41 years. What do we do now? I asked. Marcus pulled back, and I saw something new in his face. Not pain anymore, something harder. Determination. Now, he said. Now we fight back. He pulled out a business card from his wallet. This is Patricia Chen. She's a lawyer who specializes in property fraud and elder financial abuse. I've already briefed her on the basics. She's waiting for your call. Elder abuse? I repeated. I'm 67, not 90. Mom, you're a woman in your late 60s whose spouse forged your signature to steal your property and your life savings. That's textbook elder financial abuse. Patricia says we have an extremely strong case. I took the card, staring at the embossed letters. Patricia Chen, ESQ, specializing in elder law, estate planning, and fraud cases. What can she actually do? I asked. She can freeze all the assets, file for emergency injunctions to prevent any property transfers, get the forgeries officially examined and documented, file criminal charges against Dad and Vanessa for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. She can protect everything while we build the case. Criminal charges, I said slowly, against David, against the man who betrayed you, stole from you, and planned to leave you homeless, Marcus corrected. He's not the man you married anymore, Mom. Maybe he never was. I looked at the business card again. My hand was steadier now. The initial shock was wearing off, replaced by something else, something cold and focused. But we need to be smart about this, Marcus continued. If Dad and Vanessa realize we know, they'll accelerate their timeline. They might try to close the deal immediately, forge more documents, move more money. We need them to think everything is still going according to their plan. You want me to pretend I didn't just catch them together, just for a few days, just long enough to get the legal protections in place. Patricia says she can have emergency orders filed by Monday if we get her the documentation this weekend. Once those are in place, it doesn't matter what Dad and Vanessa try to do. Everything will be frozen. I thought about David in that cottage bedroom, the way he'd touched her, the way she'd smiled when she saw me, the casual cruelty in her voice. You're past that stage of life. Could I face them and pretend I hadn't seen? Could I sit at the breakfast table and pour coffee and smile? For 32 years, I'd welcomed strangers into my home. I'd served breakfast to people I'd never met before. I'd made small talk and smiled and made them feel comfortable, no matter what was happening in my own life. I'd done it when my mother died, when I miscarried twice before Marcus was born, when the business almost went under during the 2008 recession. I'd put on a smile and served breakfast and taken care of other people. I could do it for a few more days to save everything I'd built. Okay, I said. We pretend everything is normal. But Marcus, I gripped his arm. You need to break up with Vanessa. Today. Right now. I don't want you anywhere near that woman. I already did, Mom. Weeks ago, in private. We've just been keeping up appearances in public, waiting for the right moment to announce it. I was going to postpone the wedding this week, blame cold feet or whatever. Give us more time to prepare. But now I've ruined that plan by coming home early. No, Marcus said firmly. You didn't ruin anything. You forced their hand. And honestly, I'm glad. I was getting tired of pretending. Footsteps on the back porch. We both turned. David stood in the doorway, fully dressed now, his face pale and strained. Margaret, he started. I can explain. Not now, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. We have guests checking in at 9 o'clock. The Hendersons from Charlotte. Anniversary trip. I need to get their room ready. David stared at me. Margaret, we need to talk about what you saw. I said not now, David. I walked past him toward the stairs. I have work to do. I felt both men watching me as I climbed the stairs to the guest rooms. My legs were steady. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I had work to do, a business to protect, a life to fight for. And in 72 hours, David and Vanessa were going to realize they'd made a catastrophic mistake. They'd underestimated me. That was going to cost them everything. I served breakfast to the Hendersons at 8:30 that morning like nothing had happened. Blueberry pancakes, maple sausage, fresh fruit salad, and coffee. They were celebrating their 35th wedding anniversary. He'd surprised her with a weekend trip to the mountains. They held hands across the table and told me stories about their grandchildren. I smiled and refilled their coffee and congratulated them on 35 years together. All while my own 41-year marriage was burning down around me. David stayed in his workshop all morning. Vanessa remained in the guest cottage. Neither of them knew what to do with the fact that I'd caught them, but hadn't confronted them. I could feel their confusion, their uncertainty. Good. Let them wonder. Marcus left at 10 o'clock, telling David he had some errands to run. Really, he was picking me up from the back entrance of the property so we could drive to Patricia Chen's office without David noticing. Patricia's law firm was in downtown Asheville, a restored brick building near Pack Square. Her office was on the 3rd floor, walls lined with legal books and framed degrees. She was in her early 50s, Chinese-American, sharp-eyed, wearing a navy suit that meant business. "Mrs. Davis," she said, shaking my hand with a firm grip. "Marcus has briefed me on the situation. I need you to know right away. You have an extremely strong case, one of the strongest I've seen in 23 years of practicing elder law." "I still don't think of myself as elderly," I said. "The law defines elder abuse as targeting anyone over 62, Patricia explained. "But age aside, what your husband has done constitutes multiple felonies: identity theft, forgery, fraud, conspiracy, financial exploitation, and because some of this involves interstate wire transfers, federal charges could apply as well." She gestured for us to sit, then pulled out a legal pad. "Walk me through the property history," she said. "Who legally owns what?" I explained how I'd purchased the property in 1992 with my grandmother's help, how everything was titled in my name alone, Margaret Louise Davis. The original deed, all subsequent property improvements, the business license, everything. "And David never questioned this arrangement?" Patricia asked. "No, he said he trusted me. He was focused on the construction work, the hands-on building. I handled all the paperwork, the legal stuff, the business side." "Smart man," Patricia said, "or he was, until he got greedy. The fact that everything is in your name alone is what's going to save you. If this were joint property, the situation would be much more complicated." She pulled out the documents Marcus had gathered, started going through them one by one, making notes, taking photos with a high-resolution scanner. "These forgeries are good," she admitted. "Very good. He clearly practiced your signature extensively. But there are tells. See here?" She pointed to one of the documents. "The pressure patterns are wrong. You're right-handed, correct?" "Yes. David is left-handed. I can see it in the way the pen moved across the page. A graphologist will be able to confirm this definitively, but I can already tell a court that these signatures are fraudulent." She kept scanning documents. After about 20 minutes, she looked up with a grim expression. "The shell company is more sophisticated than I expected," she said. "Blue Ridge Hospitality LLC was incorporated in Delaware, which makes the corporate veil harder to pierce. He listed himself as the sole member and manager. But here's where he made a critical mistake." She pulled up something on her computer, turned the screen toward us. "To transfer real property, actual land and buildings, from your name to the LLC, he needed to file deed transfers with the county, which he did. But those deed transfers require notarization, and notarization requires you to appear in person with valid identification. I never went to any notary," I said. "Exactly. Which means either the notary was complicit in the fraud, or David used a fake notary stamp. Either way, it's another felony, and it gives us grounds to invalidate every single transfer he made." Marcus leaned forward. "How long will it take to freeze everything?" "If I file emergency motions this afternoon, I can have a hearing scheduled for Monday morning. I'll request several things: an immediate freeze on all assets associated with the B&B and the LLC, an injunction preventing any property transfers or sales, a forensic accounting of all financial transactions over the past 5 years, and a restraining order preventing David from accessing any business accounts or documents." "Will the judge grant all that?" I asked. "Based on what you've shown me?" "Almost certainly. Judges take elder financial abuse very seriously, especially when there's clear evidence of forgery and identity theft. The challenge will be enforcement." "What do you mean?" Patricia leaned back in her chair. "Once David realizes legal action is underway, he'll know the game is up. People in his position typically respond in one of 3 ways. 1. They cooperate and try to minimize their criminal exposure. 2. They lawyer up and fight. 3. They run. Run where? Anywhere. Out of state, out of the country, with whatever liquid assets they can grab before everything gets frozen. That's why timing is critical. We need to get these orders in place before he knows we're taking action. Marcus pulled out his phone. There's something else you should know. Vanessa has been in contact with 2 men I don't recognize. I've seen them meeting with her twice in the past week, both times at a coffee shop in downtown. They look like hired help, not corporate types, more like, I don't know, muscle. Patricia's expression sharpened. Did you get photos? Yes. Marcus showed her several pictures he'd taken from a distance. 2 men, both in their 30s, one white with a shaved head, one Hispanic with a goatee, meeting with Vanessa, exchanging envelopes. These could be accomplices, Patricia said. If they're planning to move assets or flee, they'd need help. People to transport documents, to drive vehicles, to help with logistics. She took photos of Marcus's phone screen. I'm going to send these to a private investigator I work with. Let's find out who these men are. She made a quick phone call, rattled off instructions to someone named Ray, then hung up. Okay, she said. Here's what we're going to do. I'm filing the emergency motions today. The hearing is scheduled for 9 o'clock Monday morning. Between now and then, you need to act completely normal. Don't let David or Vanessa know that anything has changed. I already saw them together, I pointed out. I can't pretend that didn't happen. You don't have to pretend it didn't happen. But you need to react in a way that doesn't make them panic. If David thinks you're just hurt and emotional, he'll assume he can manipulate you. Apologize, convince you to forgive him. That buys us time. What we can't have is him realizing you're taking legal action. The moment he knows that, he becomes a flight risk. I thought about this. So I should, what? Act devastated? Fragile? Act however feels natural. But don't mention lawyers. Don't mention the forged documents. Don't let them know Marcus has been investigating. If David tries to talk to you, let him think there's still a chance he can smooth this over. I don't know if I can do that. Patricia looked at me directly. Mrs. Davis, in my experience, survivors are much stronger than they realize. You've already done the hard part. You've discovered the truth. You've reached out for help. Maintaining appearances for 48 more hours? You can do that. 48 hours. 2 more days of pretending my world wasn't ending. What happens at the Monday hearing? Marcus asked. I present the evidence to the judge. The forged signatures, the shell company documents, the offshore account transfers. I argue that Mrs. Davis is in immediate danger of losing her property and life savings, and that emergency intervention is necessary to prevent irreparable harm. If the judge agrees, and I'm confident he will, he'll issue temporary orders freezing everything while we prepare for a full hearing. And David? He'll be served with the court orders Monday morning, probably around the same time as the hearing. He'll have the right to respond, to hire his own lawyer, to contest our claims, but the freeze will already be in place. He won't be able to touch any of the property, any of the accounts, anything connected to the B&B or the LLC. What about criminal charges? I asked. Those will come separately through the district attorney's office. I'll be providing them with all our evidence. Forgery, identity theft, and fraud of this magnitude typically result in felony charges. He's looking at potential prison time. Prison time. My husband of 41 years potentially going to prison. I should have felt something. Shock, horror, sadness. But all I felt was cold, focused clarity. He'd made his choices. Now he'd face the consequences. And Vanessa? Marcus asked. Her situation is more complicated because she's not your spouse, Mrs. Davis. But if we can prove she was part of the conspiracy, that she knowingly participated in defrauding you, she'll face charges too. Conspiracy to commit fraud, potentially RICO charges, if we can prove this was an organized scheme by her company. Patricia pulled out a stack of papers. I need you to sign several documents. Authorization for me to act as your attorney. Permission to access financial records. An affidavit stating that you never authorized any of the transfers David made. Can you do that now? I picked up the pen. My hand was steady. I signed every document she put in front of me. My real signature. The one David had tried to copy but never quite mastered. When we finished, it was 1:30 in the afternoon. Patricia walked us to the door. Go home, she said. Act normal. Run your business. Smile at your guests. And whatever David says to you, whatever he promises, just remember, none of it is real. He's been lying to you for at least 2 years, probably longer. Don't let him manipulate you now. Marcus drove me back to the B&B, dropping me off at the back entrance again. As I walked across the property toward the main house, I saw David working in the garden. Our garden. The one I'd planted 32 years ago. The roses I'd pruned every spring. The herbs I'd cultivated. The stone pathways I'd laid myself. He looked up when he heard my footsteps. His face was cautious, uncertain. "Margaret," he said, "can we talk?" I stopped walking, looked at him, really looked at him. He was 69 years old. Gray hair, weathered skin, strong hands from decades of construction work. The same hands that had held me on our wedding day. The same hands that had held our newborn son. The same hands that had built our home. The same hands that had forged my signature over and over again to steal everything I'd worked for. "What would you like to say, David?" He set down his pruning shears, walked toward me. "What you saw this morning, it's not what you think." I almost laughed. The oldest line in the book, but I kept my face neutral. "Then what is it?" I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. "Vanessa. She's been pursuing me for months. I tried to resist, but I'm human, Margaret. I'm weak. I'm sorry." He was blaming her. Of course he was. "How long?" I asked. "It only happened a few times. The last couple of months, it didn't mean anything. She means nothing to me. You're my wife. You're the only woman I've ever really loved." Lies. According to Marcus's evidence, they'd been involved for at least a year. But I let him keep talking. "I understand if you're angry," David continued. "I understand if you need time. But please, Margaret, don't let one mistake destroy 41 years of marriage. We can get through this. We can go to counseling. We can fix this." He reached for my hand. I let him take it, even though my skin crawled at his touch. "I need some time to process this," I said quietly. "It's a lot to take in." "Of course. Take all the time you need. I'll sleep in the workshop tonight. Give you space." "Thank you." He squeezed my hand. "I love you, Margaret. I've always loved you. I'm so sorry I hurt you." I pulled my hand away gently. "I need to check on the Hendersons, make sure they have everything they need." I walked into the house, leaving him standing in the garden. Inside, I leaned against the closed door, breathing carefully. Patricia was right. He was trying to manipulate me, playing the remorseful husband, the weak man who'd made one mistake, counting on my love, my loyalty, my willingness to forgive. He had no idea what was coming. 48 hours. I just needed to hold on for 48 more hours. Saturday morning, I woke at 5:30 like I had every day for the past 39 years. David's side of the bed was empty. He'd kept his word about sleeping in the workshop. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, counting down the hours until Monday morning. 39 hours left. I showered, dressed, and headed downstairs to prepare breakfast for our guests. The Hendersons were checking out after breakfast. We had a new couple arriving in the afternoon, the Kowalskis from Chicago. Life at the B&B continued. Guests came and went. Beds needed changing. Food needed cooking. The world kept turning, even while mine fell apart. I was in the kitchen at 6:15, measuring flour for blueberry muffins, when I heard voices outside. The kitchen window faces the side yard, with a clear view of the path that leads to the guest cottage. Through the early morning light, I saw David and Vanessa walking together, their heads close, talking intently. I turned off the mixer and moved closer to the window. They stopped about 20 feet from the house, near the old oak tree, close enough that if I opened the window slightly, I could hear them. I eased the window open 2 inches. Their voices carried clearly in the still morning air. "Can't wait until Monday," Vanessa was saying. Her voice was sharp, anxious. "She knows, David. I could see it in her face yesterday. She's planning something." "You're being paranoid," David replied. "I talked to her yesterday. She's hurt, she's processing, but she's not suspicious about the business side. She doesn't know anything about the LLC or the sale." "How can you be sure?" "Because I know my wife. If she knew about the money, she'd have confronted me already. She'd be screaming, throwing things, calling lawyers. Instead, she's being quiet. That means she's just dealing with the affair, not the rest of it." I gripped the windowsill, keeping my breathing silent. "We need to accelerate the timeline anyway," Vanessa insisted. "Close the deal now, today, tomorrow at the latest. Horizon isn't ready to close until next week." "Forget Horizon," Vanessa snapped. "I have another buyer. A private investor who'll pay $7.2 million cash, close in 24 hours, no inspection, no contingencies. I've been cultivating him as a backup option. $7.2 million. Less than Horizon's offer, but faster." "Who is this investor?" David asked. "Someone who doesn't ask questions, someone who moves fast." I can have the paperwork ready by this afternoon. We sign tomorrow morning. The money transfers Monday, and by Monday night, we're on a plane to Lisbon. My heart stopped. Lisbon? David said. I thought we were going to Costa Rica. Change of plans. I have contacts in Portugal. Connections. Places we can stay while the heat dies down. And Portugal doesn't have an extradition treaty with the US for financial crimes under $10 million. Extradition treaty. They'd planned this down to the legal technicalities. What about Margaret? David asked. What happens to her? What do you care? Vanessa's voice turned cold. You said yourself she's past her prime. You said you've been waiting for an excuse to leave for years. Well, here's your excuse. And $7.2 million is a very good excuse. There was a long pause. I held my breath. You're right, David said finally. I've given 41 years to this place. To her. It's my turn now. Our turn. So we do it? Tomorrow morning? Tomorrow morning. But I need to forge one more document. A quitclaim deed, transferring Margaret's remaining ownership interest to the LLC. Once that's recorded, I control everything legally. The buyer's attorney will need that to close the deal. Can you do it convincingly? I've been practicing her signature for 2 years. I can do it. They started walking back toward the cottage. I eased the window closed, my hands shaking now. Tomorrow morning. They were going to forge one more document tomorrow and sell my property out from under me. The Monday hearing would be too late. I pulled my phone from my pocket with trembling fingers and texted Marcus. Call me now. Emergency. 30 seconds later, my phone buzzed. Mom? Marcus's voice was thick with sleep. What's wrong? They're moving up the timeline, I whispered, moving to the far corner of the kitchen where I couldn't be seen or heard from outside. They're planning to close the sale tomorrow, Sunday morning. They have plane tickets to Lisbon for tomorrow night. What? Are you sure? I just heard them talking. David is going to forge one more document today, a quitclaim deed. They have a buyer ready to pay $7.2 million cash, close tomorrow. Marcus, the Monday hearing will be too late. I heard rustling as Marcus got out of bed. I'm calling Patricia right now. Don't move. Don't do anything. Just stay where you are. He hung up. I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by the muffin batter I'd been mixing, the coffee pot waiting to be started, the breakfast table I'd set the night before. 39 years of getting up at 5:30, 39 years of serving strangers breakfast in my home, 32 years of building this business from nothing, and David was going to steal it all tomorrow morning. My phone rang. Patricia Chen, calling at 6:27 on a Saturday morning. Mrs. Davis, she said, her voice alert and focused. Marcus just briefed me. We need to move fast. Very fast. Is there any way you can get me a copy of that quitclaim deed once David drafts it? I don't know. Maybe. He'll probably work on it in his office. Try. If we can prove he's actively forging documents right now, I can get an emergency judge to issue orders today instead of Monday. But I need physical evidence. A photo of the document, a scan, anything. What about the plane tickets? The plan to leave the country? That's good for our case, but not enough by itself. I need proof of the immediate fraud, the quitclaim deed. Can you get it? I thought about David's office, a converted bedroom on the second floor where he kept all the business files, the computer, the legal documents. He usually locked the door, but I had a key. I'd always had a key. It was my house. I'll try, I said. Call me the moment you have something, anything. I'll be standing by. She hung up. I stood there holding my phone, staring at my reflection in the dark window. 67 years old. A lifetime of playing by the rules, trusting the system, believing in marriage and family, and doing the right thing. And now, I was going to break into my husband's office to photograph evidence of his crimes. The irony was almost funny. I finished mixing the muffin batter, put it in the oven, started the coffee, set out plates and silverware. All the morning routines I'd done 10,000 times before. At 7:15, the Hendersons came down for breakfast. I served them fresh muffins, scrambled eggs, bacon, fruit, smiled and chatted and asked about their plans for the day. They left at 8:30, checked out, drove away in their rental car to continue their 35th anniversary celebration. I envied them. Their intact marriage, their happiness, their ability to celebrate decades together without betrayal. At 9 o'clock, David came in through the back door. He'd showered and shaved, looked almost normal except for the guilt in his eyes. Morning, he said cautiously. Morning. I replied, wiping down the kitchen counter. Listen, I have some paperwork to catch up on today. Business stuff. I'll be in the office if you need me. Paperwork. The quit-claim deed he was going to forge. Okay, I said. I need to prepare the room for the Kowalskis. They're arriving at 2. He nodded and headed upstairs. I heard his office door close. The lock click. I waited 15 minutes. Then I quietly climbed the stairs. His office door was closed. I could hear music playing inside. Classical. Something with violins. He always listened to music when he was concentrating on detailed work. I pulled the spare key from my pocket, the one I'd kept on my keyring for 32 years. The one that opened every door in this house because it was my house. My name on the deed. My property. I slid the key into the lock, turned it slowly, carefully, until I heard the soft click. The music was loud enough that he wouldn't hear the door opening if I was quiet. I eased it open 2 inches. 3. Just enough to see inside. David sat at his desk, his back to the door, hunched over a document. The desk lamp was on even though morning sun came through the window. He was using a magnifying glass, practicing something on a scratch paper. My signature. Over and over he practiced the way I wrote Margaret Louise Davis, adjusting the curves, the pressure, the flow. On the desk beside him, I could see the document he was preparing to sign. Official legal form, blue border, notary section at the bottom. Quitclaim deed, the header read in bold letters. I pulled my phone from my pocket, switched it to camera mode, zoomed in as far as it would go. Click. I photographed the scene. David's back, the document, the practice signatures. Click. Closer shot of the quitclaim deed itself. Click. The notary stamp sitting on his desk. A fake one, I realized. He'd bought or made a fake notary stamp. Click. The practice papers with my forged signature repeated dozens of times. I took 7 photos total. Then I slowly, carefully, pulled the door closed, locked it again, slipped the key back in my pocket. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. I walked back downstairs on shaking legs, made it to the kitchen, pulled out my phone and texted all 7 photos to Patricia Chen. My phone rang immediately. "This is perfect," Patricia said. "Exactly what I needed. I can see the quitclaim deed. I can see him practicing the signature. I can see the fake notary stamp. Mrs. Davis, I'm calling Judge Morrison right now. He handles emergency motions on weekends. I'm going to request an immediate hearing. Today, this afternoon if possible. Will he agree? With this evidence? Absolutely. This shows active, ongoing fraud. A clear and immediate danger. Judge Morrison will issue emergency orders, possibly even call the police to prevent the document from being finalized. The police? Forgery in progress is a crime. Mrs. Davis, we're past civil remedies now. This is criminal." I sat down at the kitchen table, my legs giving out. What do I do? Nothing. Stay in the house, stay safe, and wait for my call. I'm going to push for a 3 o'clock hearing this afternoon. If the judge agrees, you and Marcus will need to come to the courthouse to testify. Can you do that? Yes. Good. Don't let David know anything is happening. In fact, if you can keep him in that office, working on that document, that's even better. We want to catch him in the act. She hung up. I sat at my kitchen table, in the house I'd bought with my own money, the house I'd restored with my own hands, the business I'd built over 32 years. Outside the window, the mountains rose in the distance, purple and blue in the morning light. The same mountains I'd watched for 3 decades. The same view I'd fallen in love with the first time I saw this property. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Patricia just called me. I'm on my way over. Stay strong, Mom. This ends today." This ends today. I looked up at the ceiling, toward the 2nd floor where David sat forging my signature, stealing my life's work, planning to abandon me and flee to Portugal with his 28-year-old accomplice. He thought he was so clever, thought he'd covered every angle, thought I'd never figure it out. He was wrong, and in approximately 6 hours, he was going to realize exactly how wrong he was. At 2:45 that afternoon, Marcus and I sat in a courtroom in downtown Asheville. It was a small courtroom, wood-paneled walls, the seal of North Carolina mounted behind the judge's bench. There were only 6 other people present: Patricia Chen, her paralegal, a court reporter, a bailiff, and 2 people I didn't recognize. A man and a woman in business attire who Patricia said were from the district attorney's office. Judge Harold Morrison entered at 2:58. He was in his mid-60s, black, with silver hair and reading glasses perched on his nose. He carried a thick folder of documents. Our evidence, I realized. "All rise," the bailiff said. We stood. Judge Morrison took his seat, opened the folder, and spent several long minutes reading in silence. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the ticking of the wall clock and the occasional rustle of papers. Finally, Judge Morrison looked up. His expression was grave. "Mrs. Davis," he said, looking directly at me, "I've reviewed the evidence submitted by your attorney. I've seen the forged signatures, the shell company documentation, the photographs from this morning showing your husband actively preparing to commit another forgery. I want you to know that in 27 years on the bench, this is one of the most clear-cut cases of elder financial abuse and fraud I've encountered." My throat tightened. I managed to nod. "Your Honor," Patricia said, standing, "given the evidence of imminent flight risk, the plane tickets to Portugal, the cash buyer ready to close tomorrow, the ongoing forgery in progress, we request immediate emergency orders to prevent any further harm to Mrs. Davis and her property." "I'm granting everything you've requested," Judge Morrison said, "and I'm adding a few measures of my own." He started writing on official court documents, his pen moving rapidly. "Effective immediately, all assets associated with Mountain View Bed and Breakfast, Blue Ridge Hospitality LLC, and any accounts held by David Lawrence Davis are frozen. No transfers, no withdrawals, no transactions of any kind. Second, an immediate injunction preventing any sale, transfer, or encumbrance of the property located at 417 Mountain View Road. Third, David Lawrence Davis is prohibited from entering the business premises or accessing any business documents, computers, or financial records. He looked up at the two people from the DA's office. Fourth, I'm issuing a warrant for the arrest of David Lawrence Davis on charges of forgery, identity theft, grand larceny, and conspiracy to commit fraud. And I'm authorizing the Asheville Police Department to execute that warrant immediately. The woman from the DA's office stood. "Your Honor, we'd like to request that the warrant also include Vanessa Claire Morrison, who our investigation has identified as a co-conspirator in this scheme." "Granted," Judge Morrison said, writing again. "2 warrants. I want both suspects in custody before nightfall. They're clear flight risks." He signed the documents with decisive strokes, then handed them to the bailiff. "Get these to APD immediately," he told the bailiff. "I want officers dispatched within 15 minutes. The bailiff practically ran from the courtroom. Judge Morrison turned back to me. "Mrs. Davis, I'm also ordering a full forensic audit of all financial transactions involving your property and businesses over the past 10 years. We need to know the full extent of what was stolen from you. That audit will be conducted by a court-appointed accountant at no cost to you." "Thank you, Your Honor," I whispered. "Don't thank me yet," he said, his voice gentler now. "The hard part is just beginning. Criminal trials, asset recovery, rebuilding your sense of trust and security. None of that happens quickly or easily, but I want you to know that the law is on your side. What was done to you was unconscionable, and we will make it right." Patricia gathered the signed orders. "Your Honor, one more request. Mrs. Davis will need police escort back to her property. There are guests currently staying at the B&B who need to be protected from any potential confrontation when the arrests occur." "Agreed." "Bailiff," Judge Morrison called to another court officer who'd entered, "arrange for 2 patrol units to accompany Mrs. Davis home and remain on scene during the arrest." At 3:27, Marcus and I left the courthouse. 2 police cruisers were waiting at the curb, engines running. Officer Williams, a woman in her 30s with kind eyes, approached us. "Mrs. Davis, we'll be escorting you home and executing the arrest warrants. Detective Ramirez and his team are meeting us there with additional units." We drove back to the B&B in a convoy, 2 patrol cars, Patricia's sedan, and Marcus's truck. The Saturday afternoon traffic moved slowly through downtown Asheville. I watched the familiar streets pass by. The art galleries, the restaurants, the coffee shops where I'd spent so many pleasant afternoons over the years. Everything looked the same, but everything had changed. We arrived at 4:21. 3 more police vehicles were already parked on the street outside the property. Detective Ramirez, a stocky man with a graying mustache, stood on the front porch. "Mrs. Davis," he said as I approached, "we've had officers watching the property since Judge Morrison issued the warrants. Your husband is still inside the house. The suspect, Vanessa Morrison, is in the guest cottage. We've also identified 2 other individuals on the property, 2 men who match the description of the possible accomplices your attorney flagged. Where are they? Marcus asked, loading boxes into a white cargo van parked behind the cottage. We've been watching them for the past 20 minutes. They're removing items from the premises. Stealing evidence, Patricia said. That's our assessment, Detective Ramirez agreed. We're going to move in now. Mrs. Davis, I need you to stay out here with Officer Williams while we execute the warrants. This could get confrontational. I nodded, my heart hammering. Detective Ramirez gestured to his team. 6 officers moved toward the house and cottage, hands on their weapons. Police! Search warrant! I heard someone shout. The front door of the main house burst open, more shouting from inside, and then David appeared, hands raised, flanked by 2 officers. His face was white with shock. What is this? He shouted. What the hell is going on? David Lawrence Davis, Detective Ramirez said, stepping forward with handcuffs. You're under arrest for forgery, identity theft, grand larceny, and conspiracy to commit fraud. You have the right to remain silent. This is insane. David's eyes found me, standing by the police car. Margaret, tell them this is a mistake. Tell them. I said nothing, just looked at him. The man I'd loved for 41 years. The man I'd built a life with. The man who'd been forging my signature and planning to steal everything from me. Margaret, he shouted again as the officers cuffed his hands behind his back. You don't understand. I can explain everything. More commotion from the guest cottage. Vanessa emerged, also in handcuffs, screaming obscenities at the officers. She was wearing expensive clothes, designer jeans, a cashmere sweater. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was perfect. She looked like someone about to catch a flight to Portugal. I want my lawyer, she was shouting. You can't do this. I haven't done anything wrong. Vanessa Claire Morrison, another officer said. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and he pulled something from an evidence bag, a passport, but not an American passport. Possession of fraudulent identity documents. This passport identifies you as Alessandra Costa, citizen of Portugal. Care to explain that? Vanessa's face went pale. She stopped screaming. Behind the cottage, I heard more shouting. The 2 accomplices were being brought out in handcuffs, the white man with the shaved head and the Hispanic man with the goatee that Marcus had photographed. What are their names? Patricia asked Detective Ramirez. He checked his notes. Ryan Hutchins and Carlos Mendez. Both have prior records, fraud, theft, forgery, professional criminals. They were being paid to help transport documents and assets out of state. One of the officers was carrying a box from the cargo van. He set it on the ground and opened it for Detective Ramirez to see. What's in there? I asked Officer Williams. Looks like business records, she said. Financial documents, deeds, contracts, everything your husband needed to complete the fraudulent sale. Another officer emerged from the van with a laptop bag and 2 locked briefcases. Detective, you need to see this. They opened the briefcases right there in the driveway. Stacks of papers, USB drives, and cash, bundles of $100 bills, banded and labeled. How much is that? Marcus asked, staring. Rough count, Detective Ramirez said. $40,000 to $50,000 in cash. Running money, Patricia said, for expenses in Portugal before they could access the offshore accounts. David was being loaded into a patrol car, still protesting. Margaret, please, we can fix this. Don't let them do this. Detective Ramirez closed the briefcases and looked at me. Mrs. Davis, we're going to need to search the entire property. Your attorney has the court order authorizing it. We're looking for additional evidence, computers, phones, documents, anything related to the fraud. This is going to take several hours. Is there somewhere else you can go? I have guests, I said. The Kowalskis. They checked in at 2 o'clock. They're supposed to be here for their anniversary. We saw them leave about an hour ago, Officer Williams said. They're not here right now. They'll come back, I said. This is their vacation. I can't disrupt their stay because of this. Patricia put a hand on my arm. Margaret, the entire property is a crime scene right now. You're going to need to relocate your guests, and yourself, at least for tonight. The reality hit me. I couldn't stay in my own home. Not tonight. Maybe not for several nights. I can call the Kowalskis, Marcus said. Explain the situation, offer them a refund, and help booking somewhere else. I'll handle it, Mom. I nodded numbly. More officers were entering the house now, carrying equipment, cameras, evidence boxes, laptop cases. My home was being invaded by strangers, torn apart, searched and documented and photographed. It had to be done. I knew that, but it hurt anyway. Mrs. Davis, Detective Ramirez said, approaching with a tablet in his hand. I need to update you on what we're finding. Your attorney requested that I keep you informed in real time. Okay, I said. We've accessed your husband's computer. He didn't have great security. His password was literally password 1234. We found extensive records of the fraudulent transactions. And Mrs. Davis, I need to tell you, the amount he stole is significantly higher than we initially thought. My stomach dropped. How much higher? Your attorney's initial estimate, based on the documents your son provided, was around $470,000. But according to the banking records we're finding, the actual amount transferred to offshore accounts is closer to $912,000. $912,000. Nearly $1 million. Stolen from me over the course of several years, while I worked and cooked and cleaned and smiled at guests and thought my husband was my partner. There's more, Detective Ramirez continued. We found evidence that this wasn't Vanessa Morrison's first operation of this kind. She's run this exact scam at least 3 other times in the past 7 years. Different properties, different families, different identities. There are likely other victims out there who don't even know they were targeted. She's a professional con artist, Patricia said. Exactly. And the company she works for, Horizon Properties, we believe they're a front organization for this type of fraud. The FBI is being notified. This could turn into a federal case. Federal case. FBI. Words I never thought would apply to my life. David and Vanessa were being driven away now, in separate patrol cars. David's face appeared in the window as his car passed. He was crying. I felt nothing watching him cry. Not satisfaction, not sadness. Just emptiness. Mrs. Davis, Patricia said gently, let's get you away from here. Marcus can take you to a hotel for tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out next steps, but you need rest. You've been through an enormous trauma today. My guests? I'll handle the guests, Marcus said firmly. I'll call everyone who has reservations for the next 2 weeks. I'll explain, I'll refund, I'll help them rebook somewhere else. Mom, you need to let me take care of this part. I looked at my son, 31 years old, strong and capable. When had he grown up so much? Okay, I said finally. Okay. Marcus drove me to the Grove Park Inn, a historic hotel on the other side of Asheville. He booked me a room with a mountain view, helped me check in, made sure I had everything I needed. Get some sleep. Mom, he said, hugging me at the door to my room. Tomorrow, we'll start figuring out how to put this back together. After he left, I sat on the bed in the hotel room, looking out at the mountains in the fading evening light. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. All warrants executed successfully. Both suspects in custody. Additional evidence seized. You're safe now. Rest. I was safe. For the first time in years, maybe decades, I was actually safe. The man who'd been stealing from me was in jail. The woman who'd been conspiring to destroy my life was in jail. The accomplices were in jail. And I was sitting in a hotel room, alone, exhausted, traumatized, but safe. I lay back on the bed, closed my eyes, and for the first time since Friday morning, I let myself cry. Not quiet tears, not dignified grief, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook my whole body. For the marriage I'd lost, for the trust that had been shattered, for the 41 years I'd given to a man who'd betrayed me in every possible way. I cried until I had nothing left, and then, finally, I slept. 6 months later, I stood in a federal courtroom in Charlotte, North Carolina, watching my husband of 41 years be sentenced to prison. David wore an orange jumpsuit. His hair had gone completely white in the months since his arrest. He'd lost weight. He looked older, smaller, diminished. Judge Catherine Brennan read the sentence in a clear, unwavering voice. David Lawrence Davis, you have been found guilty of 18 counts of forgery, 12 counts of identity theft, 7 counts of wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit grand larceny. These crimes were committed against your wife of 41 years, a woman who trusted you completely and who built a successful business through her own hard work and dedication. You systematically betrayed that trust, forged her signature hundreds of times, and stole approximately $912,000 from her over a period of 5 years. David kept his head down. He didn't look at me. The federal sentencing guidelines for crimes of this nature and magnitude call for a range of 8 to 11 years imprisonment. However, taking into account your cooperation with investigators, your lack of prior criminal record, and your age, I am sentencing you to 5 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. You will also be required to pay full restitution to Mrs. Davis in the amount of $912,000 plus interest and court costs. 5 years. He'd likely serve 3.5 with good behavior. Additionally, Judge Brennan continued, I am issuing a permanent restraining order. You are prohibited from contacting Mrs. Davis directly or indirectly for the rest of her natural life. You are prohibited from coming within 500 feet of her residence or business. Any violation of these orders will result in immediate return to custody. The gavel came down. David was led away by federal marshals. He glanced back once, tried to catch my eye, but I looked away. I had nothing to say to him. Vanessa's trial had concluded 2 weeks earlier. Her case was more complicated because investigators had uncovered her entire criminal history. She wasn't Vanessa Morrison. That was just one of 7 false identities she'd used over the past decade. Her real name was Rachel Kowalski. Ironically, the same last name as the guests who'd been scheduled to stay at my B&B the weekend. Everything exploded. She'd run the same con 4 times before targeting me. 4 other families, 4 other properties. 2 in California, 1 in Oregon, 1 in Vermont. She'd stolen a combined total of over $6.3 million from her previous victims. The FBI built a massive case against her. Not just fraud, but identity theft, conspiracy, racketeering. They charged her under the RICO Act, Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations, because she'd been working with an organized network of accomplices. She was sentenced to 9 years in federal prison with no possibility of early release. After serving her time, she'd be deported to Brazil, where investigators discovered she was actually a citizen. The 2 accomplices, Ryan Hutchins and Carlos Mendez, each got 3 years for their roles in the conspiracy. Horizon Properties was shut down. The FBI discovered it was indeed a front operation for real estate fraud. 17 people were indicted. The investigation was still ongoing. As for the money David stole, I got most of it back. The forensic accountant tracked down $831,000 in various offshore accounts. The remaining $81,000 had been spent on gifts for Vanessa, on preparations for their escape, on legal fees before David's assets were frozen. $831,000. Not everything, but enough. Enough to stabilize the business, to make some long overdue repairs to the property, to rebuild my financial security. The divorce was finalized 4 months after David's arrest. I filed on grounds of fraud and adultery. He didn't contest it. Under North Carolina law, all marital property was awarded to me, which meant I kept everything, since everything had been in my name anyway. The irony was that if David had just asked for a divorce, he probably could have walked away with half of everything legitimately. North Carolina is an equitable distribution state. After 41 years of marriage, a judge would likely have awarded him a significant portion of the marital assets. But he didn't want half. He wanted everything. And his greed cost him his freedom. The Mountain View Bed and Breakfast reopened 3 months after the arrests. I hired additional staff, a full-time cook, a housekeeper, a part-time manager to help with bookings and administrative work. I couldn't do it all alone anymore, and I finally admitted that to myself. Marcus moved back into his downtown apartment. He decided not to open his own restaurant, at least not yet. Instead, he took a job as executive chef at a well-regarded restaurant in Asheville. He needed time to heal, to process everything that had happened. We both did. He started dating someone new, Emily, a local teacher he met at a farmer's market. She was kind, genuine, uncomplicated, the opposite of Vanessa in every way. I liked her immediately. Life moved forward, slowly, carefully, but forward. I planted new roses in the garden that spring, hybrid tea roses in deep reds and soft pinks. I'd always loved roses, but David had insisted on only white ones. Classic, he'd said. Elegant. Now I planted whatever colors I wanted, because it was my garden, my property, my life. On a warm afternoon in late April, 7 months after the arrests, I received a letter. The return address was FCI Butner, the federal prison in North Carolina, where David was serving his sentence. I stared at that envelope for a long time before opening it. The letter was 3 pages, handwritten in David's careful script. Dear Margaret, I know I have no right to write to you. I know the restraining order prohibits direct contact. My attorney is sending this through proper legal channels, so I'm not violating the court's order. You don't have to read this. You don't have to respond, but I needed to try. I've had 7 months to think about what I did. 7 months sitting in an 8x10 cell, thinking about the life I destroyed. Not just your life, our life. 41 years of marriage, a son, a business we built together. All of it gone because I was weak and greedy and stupid. I wish I could explain why I did it. I've tried to understand it myself. I was turning 70. I felt old, invisible, irrelevant. The B&B was yours, your vision, your success, your creation. I was just the handyman who fixed things when they broke. Vanessa made me feel important again. Young again. Like I mattered. That's not an excuse. Nothing excuses what I did. But it's the truth. I want you to know that she approached me. The affair, the plan to sell the property, all of it was her idea initially. But I can't even hide behind that, because I said yes. I participated willingly. I forged your signature. I stole your money. I betrayed your trust in every way possible. The worst part is, I convinced myself I was doing it for us, that we take the money and retire somewhere beautiful and finally relax after all those years of hard work. I told myself you'd forgive me eventually, that you'd understand I did it so we could have an easier life. I was lying to myself. I did it because I wanted to feel powerful. I did it because I was selfish. I did it because I stopped seeing you as a partner and started seeing you as an obstacle. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm writing this because you deserve to hear the truth, or at least my version of it. You deserve to know that none of this was your fault. You were a good wife, a good partner, a good person. I was the one who failed. I hope you're healing. I hope the business is thriving. I hope Marcus has found happiness. I hope you've found peace. I'll spend the rest of my life regretting what I did to you. David, I read the letter twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer in my office. I didn't respond. What was there to say? He was right about one thing. I did deserve to hear the truth. But I didn't need his apology. I didn't need his regrets. I needed to move forward. That evening, I sat on the back porch of the B&B, watching the sun set over the mountains. The sky turned gold, then pink, then deep purple. Stars began appearing one by one. Marcus stopped by after his shift at the restaurant. He brought Emily with him. They sat with me on the porch, drinking sweet tea, talking about ordinary things. Emily's students, Marcus's new menu, the weather forecast for the weekend. Normal conversation, normal life. Mom, Marcus said eventually, I wanted to ask you something. Emily and I are thinking about taking a trip to Charleston next month. Would you be okay running the B&B solo for a few days? Or should I ask Jake to cover for me? Jake was the part-time manager I'd hired. Competent, reliable, trustworthy. I'll be fine, I said. You and Emily should go. Have fun. Be young. You're sure? I'm sure. After they left, I walked through my property alone, past the main house with its 8 guest rooms, past the cottage where I'd found David and Vanessa that Friday morning, 7 months ago, past the gardens, the parking area, the workshop where David used to spend his evenings. 4 acres, every inch of it mine. Legally, officially, completely mine. I thought about my grandmother, who'd loaned me $22,000 33 years ago, who'd made me promise to put everything in my own name, who'd seen something I'd been too trusting to see. She'd protected me, even after her death. Her wisdom had saved me. Thank you, Grandma, I whispered to the night air. You were right. I went back inside, locked all the doors, turned off the lights, climbed the stairs to my bedroom. My bedroom now, not ours. I'd redecorated completely. New paint, new furniture, new bedding. Nothing that reminded me of David. Before getting into bed, I looked at myself in the mirror. 68 years old. Gray hair that I'd stopped coloring, lines around my eyes from 68 years of living, a body that had worked hard for nearly 4 decades as a nurse and another 3 decades running a business. I looked tired, but I also looked strong. You survived, I told my reflection. You're still here. You won. And I had won. Not because David was in prison or because I'd recovered most of the money. I'd won because I was still standing, still running my business, still building my life on my own terms. David had tried to take everything from me. He'd failed. I owned this property. I owned this business. I owned my life. And nobody, not a husband, not a con artist, not anyone, would ever take that from me again. I got into bed, turned off the lamp, and closed my eyes. Outside, the mountains stood silent and eternal in the darkness. The same mountains that had watched over this property for millions of years. The same mountains that would be here long after I was gone. But while I was here, while I had breath in my body and strength in my spirit, this place was mine, all mine, and that was enough. And if my story helped you in any way, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe and share this with someone who needs it. You never know who needs to hear that they're not alone.